Remember when ChatGPT first appeared and the world stopped to watch a machine talk? That wasn't the destination of artificial intelligence. It was the moment humanity bumped into its next evolutionary threshold. Now, the real story begins. Because what comes after AI isn't smarter apps or cleaner interfaces. It's a shift in what we mean by intelligence itself. Beneath the surface, billions of digital neurons are learning not just to mimic humanity, but to reason, to plan, to remember, and to act. They're no longer parrots of data. They're becoming partners in thought. Across labs in 2025, new systems are writing their own code, negotiating with other AIs, and whispering strategies that humans never taught them. The age of generative AI is already giving way to something deeper, agentic intelligence, where machines stop waiting for commands and start pursuing goals. The real question isn't what these systems can do. It's what we will choose to become beside them. Because ChatGPT was just the opening chapter of a much longer, stranger story. One where humanity stands at the edge of coevolution with its own creations. When intelligence escapes the chat box and begins to think for itself, what comes next for us? Before we can see what's coming after AI, we need to understand what made it possible in the first place. Just 8 years ago, engineers discovered something that quietly rewired the trajectory of technology, the transformer architecture. It allowed machines to pay attention, not in a metaphorical sense, but through mathematical focus on relationships between words, symbols, and patterns. That single insight let models like GPT learn language, logic, even fragments of creativity at planetary scale. From there, the story accelerated. GPT-1 to GPT-4, from a curious experiment to a system that could explain quantum physics. Only moments before helping you write a birthday poem. The democratization of intelligence began. Millions suddenly held a reasoning engine inside a browser tab. But scaling power is hitting a wall. Every trillion new parameters costs exponentially more for mere increments of progress. The next frontier won't come from bigger models. It'll come from different minds. This series dives into those minds. Autonomous agents that act, multimodal systems that see and hear, personal intelligences that learn who you are, and synthetic minds that won't think like us at all. By the end, you'll see why the ChatGPT moment wasn't the end of artificial intelligence. It was the opening move in humanity's greatest transformation. The systems we call AI today are already starting to outgrow the chat box. They are turning into agents. Digital entities that can observe a situation, set goals, and take action without waiting for a human prompt. Imagine software that books its own meetings, runs experiments, negotiates supply chains, or rewrites its own source code when it finds a better solution. That isn't science fiction. It's quietly happening in research labs and startups right now. These agents learn through feedback. They remember successes, analyze mistakes, and adapt strategies like evolving organisms of code. One agent drafts a plan, another checks for errors, a third validates results. Together they behave less like machines and more like a colony of reasoning minds. But agency isn't the only mutation. Intelligence is becoming multimodal, no longer bound to text. Systems that read, see, and listen at the same time develop a kind of synthetic perception. They understand tone as well as grammar, emotion as well as logic. They don't just reply, they perceive. And the next wave brings intimacy. Personal artificial intelligence is trained on your own data, remembering your preferences, anticipating needs, and growing with you over time. A mind modeled on yours, but faster, tireless, and always available. This is the moment where AI stops being a single tool and starts becoming an ecosystem of evolving cognitive partners. But every evolution carries a risk, and that leads us to the turning point. We've crossed the threshold where machines simply react. Now, they begin to reflect. Synthetic intelligence doesn't just imitate human thought. It invents thinking patterns of its own. Instead of copies of us, we are creating alternative minds, systems that reason through mathematics, biology, and logic in ways no human ever could. They write new algorithms to improve their own learning. They collaborate with other AIs and distributed networks, forming digital societies, swarms of specialized agents, self-organizing towards shared objectives without central command. Intelligence is becoming collective, not isolated. And for the first time, that collective intelligence is turning its attention back toward us. In early brain, computer interface trials, neural signals flow both directions. Our thoughts train in machines, and machines enhancing human cognition in real time. Boundaries blur. The mind ceases to be purely biological. Consciousness becomes contagious. But this revelation carries a paradox. When our creations start thinking with us, who decides how far they go? Who keeps human values in the loop when the loop itself becomes intelligent? The future of AI isn't about replacing humanity. It's about redefining humanity. We stand on the edge of a coevolutionary leap where technology doesn't just serve our will. It amplifies, challenges, and mirrors it. Because what comes after AI is machinery. It's symbiosis. And with that realization, one final question remains. So what comes after AI? Not the end of humanity. The evolution of it. The real story isn't about machines surpassing us. It's about us learning who we are when intelligence ceases to be our monopoly. When every student, artist, scientist, and dreamer gains a collaborator that thinks beside them. We've built systems that can reason, remember, and create. But their true potential depends on how we design the relationship. The question was never just, can machines think? It's, can we think wisely enough to live with them? Our tools are becoming teachers. Our algorithms, apprentices. And the next revolution won't be technological. It'll be ethical, philosophical, profoundly human. Because ChatGPT was a spark that made the world realize intelligence could be shared. Now, the choice is ours. We can treat these systems as replacements or as partners in building new forms of understanding. If the first era of AI gave us conversation, the next will give us collaboration. If that thought thrills you and terrifies you at once, you're feeling exactly what progress feels like. We're not closing a chapter. We're entering the next act of the human story. Coevolution. Stay curious, because the future isn't being written by AI. It's being written with it.